Let's see if we can zoom in a little. There we go. Ooh, wow. Much better. Okay, so what we're working on right now is the idea of value. What you might have called shading in the past. And what I'm drawing is what we call a value scale. You can think of it like scales in music, from a low note to a high note. So we're going to work on making transitions from light to dark values. We're going to go across, it'll be light on the left side, and as I go to my right, I'm going to get darker and darker and darker. The top one I'm going to do with what we call hatching, which is a single set of parallel lines. Closer together and more of them is what makes it look darker. The bottom set we're going to do in cross-hatching. This is the hardest art term. It's hatching where you cross over the first set with another set of lines. So you can have multiple sets of parallels. The first box that I'm going to do here is just going to be white, so that's easy. I don't have to do a thing. I'm going to put a few lines into that second box. I'm going to put a few more and closer together in my third box. And I'm trying to control these and keep them fairly parallel to each other. We don't want to go kind of scribble-scrabbly on these, but can you see already that it's getting darker as I go? Here's my fourth box. I'm getting tighter together, but there's still some little white spaces in between. I am using one of my softest pencils. This is a 4 or a 6B. Can you really see that? If I go crazy with it and put them super, super tight together and just put bunches of them, look at how dark I can get that last box to be. And these, again, are all just lines going in the same direction. Hatching is one set of parallels, and that's pretty much what we did actually with our cross contours. We kind of just went left to right around the objects. With cross hatching, I can go in more than one direction. So here I've got one set of parallels. I'm just going to cross over that with a second set. On this one in the middle, I am still going closer together and more lines, but I'm also going in more directions. That's really making a value change there. Maybe we'll try 4 in this one. It's definitely getting darker. It does look a little bit darker to me in person than it probably looks on the screen. But I did turn up the brightness on that lamp so that you could see it at all. So there's 4 layers there, and they're really tight together, and I'm going to go on a just slightly different angle here for a 5th layer. Boom. So even with the simplest tool, pencil, just making lines, I can actually start to create these illusions of 3-dimensional space by making changes in value. So here's some things to watch out for. Do's and do not do's. What happens if I want to draw a sphere? Well, you can do a circular form easily enough, yeah? If I go in and I'm thinking about there being a light source going this way, so it's light on my right, dark on my left. If I lay in a shadow like this, is that inherently wrong? Yes and no. I mean, it puts value there, but does it make that look 3-dimensional to you guys? How come? They're totally flat. It's not following the curve that we talked about. Remember when we talked about a globe and the latitude, longitude lines when we were doing cross contour? That's what we want to be doing here. So this is wrong in that direction. I can make it even worse. Look how horrible this is. Oh, yeah. Boy, that looks flat, right? What else is it missing? If this is in a drawing in the real world, what else should be there if there's that big of a shadow? Cast shadow. And what happens if I do my cast shadow like this? OMG. That is not on the table, is it? It's totally the same plane as the circle. I mean, it looks ridiculous, right? So same idea, done with a little more care. Circle, light source. What happens if I do that? They're curving with the curve of the object, right? Yeah? I can also put more lines closer together on the darkest side so that my object seems to have a value or a shadow that starts to fade on its edge. The same thing happens in the background. If this is a tabletop and this is right in front of me, then there might be a line straight up and down underneath that object that is the perspective on the table. But to my left, wouldn't my lines start to do this? And to the right, wouldn't they start to do that? Yeah? When you look at the tabletop where the still life is, take a look at the grid that I put on there and you'll see those lines on the table. That'll help you get the perspective right. So if this has a cast shadow, obviously I can put them this way so they're parallel to the table, but the ones that cross, I want to make sure they kind of follow that angle of the table itself. Doesn't that look a little more believable now? Way more believable here than there. So with these objects, another thing to be aware of is that on a light side, we can divide any object really that's getting hit with light this way. I'm going to go the other direction. Light's now coming from the left. So we could talk about this being the light side and this being the dark side. But this is not George Lucas Star Wars, where you're either good or evil, right? There's not that much extreme change. What we have is a shadow area on this side that is the darkest part, and we call that the core of the shadow. But the edge of my shadow may actually extend outward a bit so that we have achieved a fade from lighter to middle tone to darker. So within the dark side, you're going to have an area that is your core of shadow. And this outer edge, we're going to call the penumbra. Penumbra literally means next to the shadow. P-E-N, the prefix pen, means next to the. Umbra means shadow. So with the exception of very extreme cases, like if you're at the beach, standing on the and it's a really bright sunny day, no clouds, and the light is like right on top of you, you will have a very hard edge to your shadow. But in most situations, general lighting, like even in the classroom, when you see a cast shadow, it'll be dark in the middle, and it'll kind of be a little lighter on its edge. That's your penumbra. So be sensitive to that as you're working on these. So what we're trying to do with all of this work is to apply the lines very consciously, very carefully, following the contours, but putting more lines closer together where things are darker. Things I would like you to avoid. When I say scribble scrabbly, try not to do that, right? If I'm doing an object and I'm like, oh, it's got a shadow on the left, and I just go random blur, it doesn't look round. Try to control those lines. Doesn't that look rounder already? So try to control your contours as much as possible. The other thing to avoid is this number, putting in a bunch of lines or putting them really close together like this and then smudging them. Okay, we will do a ton of blendy, smudgy stuff when we get to the charcoal. And it's not that you can't smudge pencil. I would be totally lying to you if I said that you should never, ever do that. You can, just not with this process, right? We're going to try to control this a little bit more. Everybody kind of clear on how to go about doing this? All right, we'll do a quick lights up and let me pull the camera over here. Whew. Woo, it's tilted, isn't it? Okay. Holy cow. It's like an earthquake. Okay. So we're trying to find good compositions, right? And this is a little harder for me to do physically with the camera, but let's see. We all know our viewfinders exist, right? So if I use the viewfinder and I tilt it like so, I could find a composition by moving further in, which makes the objects larger relative to the frame, or I could pull closer to my eye, or in this case, the camera. Maybe that's too close. That might be an interesting composition right in there. Maybe it's better, oh, lots better, that way. Yeah? So that's what you're using the viewfinder for, is to find your best compositions. If you try one that has a piece of transparent plastic on it, try to get into that position. It's hard to work backwards, up and down at the same time. Okay, I cannot put my face in the right position to see this as accurately as I would like, because I'm having to draw from the camera on the screen. So bear with. If I get even close, you have to give me like some kind of props. All right, let's just pretend that that's sort of the objects I'm trying to do. All right, I'm going to try to clean this up a little. But you got the basic idea, right? Sort of. Everyone's going to drop my class now. He can't draw. All right, so I'm trying to get something that approximates those objects right there. Yeah? Okay. If I go back to this side and look down on this, okay, let's say, for the sake of argument, that that's the composition that I want to work with. When it comes time to transfer that to a larger piece of paper, if I simply put in this X by connecting my opposite corners, yeah, and then make the same type of move here on a large sheet of paper, I'm just replicating that X in the viewfinder by connecting up on my 18 by 24 inch paper, my left bottom corner to my right top corner. So now I have something that kind of approximates that little X. This viewfinder, remember, is 3 inches tall by 4 inches wide. And my drawing surface that I'm working on is 18 by 24. It's 6 times bigger. Let's go even a little taller. Let's try this. There we go. I'm just going to quickly darken this freehand. Can you see the X a little better now? Ish. Okay, good. So if that's my original guy, right, that center point is just to the side of where I sighted the mannequin's head. And the top of his head crosses this line, maybe about here. The jawline seems to go just under, across, and up. The edge of the box is almost in line with this. And the pyramid shape, from my point of view, seemed to go off the frame that direction. So very quickly, I've roughed in the basic idea of my composition from a quick gestural sketch. Does that all make sense to everybody? So we literally are taking everything that we've done for the last 3 weeks, putting it all together. So this is your opportunity now. Remember the homework, number 3 was your self-portrait still life. That was a chance to kind of blow me away. This is double chance, right? Can you show all of the different planes of these objects? Can you show the shadows and cast shadows? Can you show the contours? So let's start. I'm going to put the light on here to light up the still lifes to get better shadows. Go ahead and start with some pencil doing your thumbnail sketches. If we can get your thumbnails done by break time, we're in good shape. So we got about half an hour. Divide that by 4. Doesn't work out totally evenly. 6 minutes, 7 minutes a piece. Something like that would be great.